Yesterday, I was watching a popular YouTube channel called Diary of a CEO, and they were interviewing Scott Galloway, who has become a real advocate for men's issues. And a woman, I can't remember her last name, it was Yuri something, and she's like a behavioral scientist. She's written an interesting book on different attachment styles, and she also is the chief advisor to a dating app called Hinge. And they were having a conversation about men's issues, in particular about why men are falling behind, why men and women aren't hooking up anymore, why young men are having a difficult time finding partners, why young women are having a difficult time finding young male partners, and income disparities. I mean, they were getting down into some of the stuff. It was pretty fascinating. I've heard a lot of these issues before, obviously. I mean, this is something that I'm into pretty deeply, so I wasn't surprised. What I was surprised about was it felt like they were dancing around the major issue, like the elephant in the room. No one wanted to talk about the impact of social engineering as a result of gender role changes that occurred with the advent of the birth control pill and feminism. Those issues were not addressed at all. Now, maybe it's because they can't deal with them, but I felt like it was this huge vacancy in their argument. And it's something that I think we need to talk about and at least fill in some of the blanks here, because I don't think you can solve a problem until you can discover its root and then figure out, can you solve it once you know what caused it? So let's talk about it. The host, Steven, I don't remember his last name, but he had some really good stats that he had pulled together, and they were pretty stark, and they really paint a pretty bleak picture for men these days. I mean, income, education, social behaviors, how frequently they're having sex. I mean, the whole thing was bleak. If you want to see it, I strongly recommend it, because it definitely gives you a sense for just how bad things are getting, especially for the next generation coming up. Scott Galloway, although he's certainly a very successful business guy, and he seems like a pretty smart guy, I like him, he was dancing around it. I could tell he's one of those guys that, in an effort to remain relevant in today's discourse on any political issue or any sensitive issue, he's trying not to offend or to be labeled as an extremist, because women in this conversation are quick to label men as misogynistic or as extremist or red pill radicals. The minute you start talking about the impact of gender roles as a result of birth control and feminism. And so he's dancing around that topic, and he's talking about how it's a benefit that we all have, allowed women, or we've encouraged women to be successful, and we've created an environment where they can succeed. And I guess on one level that's true, but it overlooks the most significant factor in that when you only have two groups of people here, we've got men and women. I know there's lots of people who argue for a third gender, but we're not going to go down that path. We're just going to talk about men and women and gender roles and the masculinity or the masculinization of women in terms of taking on more masculine roles in our society, and the impact that it had on men. We're in a closed system here. So there are only so many opportunities available to the entire population. And when you are adding opportunity to one half of that population, it is by default that you are taking opportunities from the other half. So when you see that you're giving opportunities to one half, and you see that the other half is not doing so well now, you don't need to be a science or a math major to figure this out. Like, we have literally taken from one group and we've given it to the other group. And now the group that we've taken it from isn't doing so well. Why is this so hard for people to figure out? It's just unreal that they didn't have this part of the conversation. It's just unreal that they're avoiding this. And I know why they're avoiding it, because it's politically unpopular. And if you start talking this way, people are going to say you're an extremist or you're a misogynist. And I guarantee you, I am not an extremist and I am not a misogynist. I guarantee you that. But I am a realist. And as a realist, I think that unless we address solutions to this problem, we're going to continue to experience it. Since the mid-1970s, the federal government and state governments and other associations and organizations have band together to create opportunities to advance women's issues, to help them in education, to help them get jobs, to create scholarships that are designed specifically for them, to create requirements for hiring so that a certain number of women are being hired, creating STEM in high schools, STEM for girls, to try to push girls and women into positions where they can be more successful in their careers. And I can see how the do-gooders all thought this would be a great idea. And I think in some ways it can be a good idea. But what we've done is we have pushed women into what had been traditionally male roles, and we've created an education system that essentially was designed specifically to help women succeed, while at the same time we have done little or nothing for men. And at the same time, I think we've actually taken away a lot of the environment where men would have been more successful. For example, in school, like recess in most elementary schools is gone. Gym and physical education is being cut back all the time because they're always looking for ways to cut back how much we spend on education. And inevitably, it's those what they call peripheral kinds of courses and programs that get cut. So gym, PE, I'm sure that music and lots of other programs are cut as well. But the fallout is that we have fewer men in schools teaching or coaching. We have more women filling those roles. And the environment in those schools is by default designed by women, and so it inevitably is beneficial to girls who are going to class. It's no wonder that boys are struggling. If a boy and a girl commit the same violation of the school rules and regulations, the boy is twice as likely to be suspended for that as the girl. If that boy happens to be black, that boy is 5 times as likely to be suspended as the girl. That gives you an idea for the kind of bias that exists in our education system, and how the education system itself, which should be about promoting success for all children, is actually discriminating specifically against boys. And this is not the kind of discrimination that's written into the rules or anything like that. This is the kind of discrimination that occurs by default. This is the kind of discrimination that is cultural, it's social, it's built into the system, because the people who run the system are prejudiced against boys in this environment. That is the problem. In this conversation, I found that it was extremely interesting that everyone at the table accepted that hypergamy in women was normal and natural, that that was a normal behavior of women, that they are going to match with someone who's either at their level physically, emotionally, financially, socially, or up or higher, and men are going to go the other way. They're going to match with someone who's at their level or slightly less than. So they assume that that is just the way women are made. That's just the way things are, that they're going to do that. I find it fascinating that we can accept that as a fact, and yet we can ignore thousands of years of behavior from women and the domestication and how we've raised families and how women have played certain roles in society, that these gender roles have been well established, I don't know, since the beginning of time, as far as I know. And yet, just here in the last 50, 60 years, we're going to blow all that up, and we're going to talk about how women should be in the workforce, and we should be pushing them to behave in these more masculine ways. Now, this is a tough one. This is a tough one. I have girls, and I want them to be able to do what they want. I want them to be able to have successful lives. And my daughter Julia, I mean, she built her kitchen from scratch, from lumber, and she's just pulled an engine out of her car and she's rebuilding it. So, I mean, she's definitely, and she's as girly girl as a girl can be. I mean, she is as feminine as a girl can be, but she's also got a can-do attitude about life. And her intention, in her life is to get married and have a family. I think that as a culture and as a society, we need to get clarity about what do we really, really want as a country and as a culture, and how do we create that? So I always, when facing a problem, look at how do I want this problem to look at the end? What does the solution look like from the end? It's sort of like doing a maze. When I was a kid, if I couldn't figure out the maze, I'd go to the end of the maze and work my way backwards. And I think that's the best way to solve some problems, is to go to the end and work your way backwards. And figure out, if that's what we want at the end, if we want to have stable families where men and women have gender roles that make sense to them based on thousands of years of history, and will satisfy our emotional and intellectual and financial needs, as well as create homes for children that are healthy and beneficial to the next generation and the generation that follows that and the one that follows that. Well, how do we create that? Because what we're doing now is not working, and it will not work next year or next generation or 3 generations from now, if there are any people left 3 generations from now. So we need to have this conversation, and we need to be honest about it and stop, dancing around the issue that feminism and the birth control pill play a significant role in this re-engineered society that we're living in. This is not natural or normal. This is something that we have created just recently. And this is something that we can address and change. Now, there may be women out there that just aren't the marrying type, and that's totally cool, and they may not want kids, and that's totally cool too, whatever you want to do. But we need to create space on an economic level, maybe with tax policy, maybe with opportunities for families, that allows families to grow and prosper, and for relationships to fall into their more natural roles. Because so long as women are outperforming men financially or educationally or socially, we're going to run into some problems. I don't think that we're going to resolve this. We're going to have to kind of find a way to create space for the more traditional approach to growing families and having stable families in our world. Otherwise, I fear to think of what it's going to be like for my great-grandchildren, Not that I'll be here, but I fear to think of what it'll be like for them. All right, you guys, that's all I got for you today. I know this is a controversial topic, so I'd love to hear your opinions. I'm going to leave a link to the conversation or the video I was talking about, so you can check it out if you want. It's a long one. It's like 2.5 hours, so brace yourself. I didn't watch the last 30 or 40 minutes. So if they came up with some solutions that I didn't pick up on, I apologize. Please like and subscribe. Let me know what you think. And I'll see you next time. Until then, stay healthy. And if you're a divorced man in your middle age, stay single. But if you're a young guy, go hook up with somebody, for God's sake. We need some more people on this planet. See you next time.